One of the most challenging parts of buying a home in the Atlanta area is finding the right neighborhood for you and your family. There are so many places that could work, but usually only a few neighborhoods that are going to give you everything that you're looking for. So today I'm going to share with you our real estate team's playbook for how we help clients narrow down and determine which Atlanta neighborhoods are going to be the perfect fit for them and their family. Let's get right into it. Welcome back to Living in Atlanta. If you haven't been to the channel before, my name is Mark and I make videos about what it's like to live in the Atlanta area. And my entire business is based on helping families relocate to the Atlanta area and purchase a home in the right neighborhood. So if you are interested in working together, you can use the link in the description below to book a free Zoom call with me today. All right, how to find your dream Atlanta neighborhood. Now, out of all the services we provide clients, one of the biggest pieces of value that we offer is understanding our clients and helping them find the area of Atlanta that is going to deliver on their top living priorities. So today I am going to take you through our actual playbook on how we do this with clients so that you can get a head start on narrowing down which parts of Metro Atlanta you should be focusing on. Now, number one is really obvious, but some people overlook it, and that is budget and size / must-haves. Now, if you have an unlimited budget, congratulations. This may be a little bit more difficult to narrow down, but most of us are working within some type of home budget. And all of us have some kind of requirement for the minimum size of the home and features of the home that are must-haves. And this is one of the easiest ways to quickly narrow down where you should be focused. For instance, if you need a 3,000 square foot home, but your budget is $400,000 and you want to be in the suburbs, we can probably cross areas like Alpharetta on the list because it's just too expensive for that size. Another example would be if you need a 3-car garage and an acre of land, it's much less likely you're going to find something like that inside the perimeter of Atlanta. You're probably going to be looking in a suburb or more rural area. Now, one note on must-haves. The housing supply is currently very low historically. So I always advise clients to cast the widest net possible. For instance, you may feel like you want a finished daylight basement, but you need to understand if we create a search based on having a fully finished daylight basement, that is going to significantly reduce the amount of options you have, which is not a bad thing in and of itself. However, imagine a scenario where the home has everything that you've been looking for and it has an unfinished daylight basement that's already been stubbed for plumbing and framed out. Now, you would not see this option in your results, even though it has 99% of what you're looking for. So my advice when it comes to must-haves is only stick with the real must-haves. That way you see as many options as possible and don't miss out on a great opportunity that otherwise would have worked. Now, in terms of the budget, obviously you'll need to work with a lender to understand exactly what you'll be qualified for and what your monthly payments will look like. But as a quick tip, another tool I really think is handy is the Zillow Mortgage Calculator app. This is a separate app from the Zillow app, and it makes it really easy to plug in purchase price, down payment, and interest rate to get a sense for what your monthly payments would be. So understanding the budget that you're comfortable with and your minimum requirements for the size of the home and features of the home is going to be your first step towards finding the perfect neighborhood. Next up will be Commute. You've probably heard, and it's definitely true, traffic in Metro Atlanta is treacherous. Some of the worst traffic in the entire country. So if there's anywhere you're commuting to, whether it's work, or family, or an amenity that you have to be close by to, like the airport, and you end up purchasing a home that's 30, 40, 50 miles from that location, this could really have a negative impact on your day-to-day living experience in the Atlanta area. Now, of course, these days, a lot of people are fully remote workers, which is great. That's going to give you more flexibility, but it's also going to make it a little bit more difficult to narrow things down. So you do want to keep the amenities in mind. Do you travel for work or do you travel frequently for leisure? Well, the Atlanta airport is in South Atlanta. So if you buy a home in Cumming, you're not exactly going to have a convenient commute to the airport. And this is another reason why your job situation is one of the first things you want to figure out. Number one, because if you're getting a loan, you will usually need a job offer letter in the Atlanta area or confirmation from your company that they are allowing you to relocate and you'll have the same pay or more. But also because figuring out where you'll be working in the Atlanta area is going to give you a radius in which you should probably stay within. And this is going to have a huge impact on your search criteria and the areas you focus on. For instance, I've had multiple clients in the past who work day to day in the Midtown area, which is in the heart of the city, but they want to live in the suburbs because they want that lifestyle and the good schools that go with it. But they are doing a daily commute and they don't want it to be longer than 45 minutes. Well, right off the bat there, I may suggest they focus on the Cobb County Northwest side more so than the Gwinnett County Northeast side, because typically the commute in town from the Cobb side is way less congested and easier to do within that time frame. Now, I'm not saying if you commute to Midtown, you shouldn't live in Gwinnett. That was just a general example on how the answers to these questions will help us narrow down the areas we're going to be focused on. The next one is going to be schools. I work with a lot of families with school-age children, and obviously the quality of the public schools in their area is hugely important to them. And if your number one priority is the quality of public schools, well, that's going to cross a lot of areas off the list right off the bat. The reality is there are only so many areas inside the perimeter with high quality public schools, and then also high quality charter and private schools. And the same thing goes for the suburbs. There are many areas with good public schools, but there are many areas that probably are just not going to meet your standards. Now, of all the subjects we're talking about today, this is the most difficult one to pin down because everyone has different standards for what quality public schools means. Some clients I have insist on being in the number 1 or 2 most rigorous public school districts, and we look in areas like East Cobb or North Gwinnett. Other clients are a little bit more relaxed with this, and they simply want a school district with a good student-teacher ratio, maybe some good diversity, good test scores, but they're not as hung up on being in the most rigorous area. And unfortunately, the information about the quality of the schools is very fractured. Now, if you're relying on niche.com or School Digger or Great Schools, that's fine, but have you noticed that those sites have conflicting information? They all use their own algorithm, which they don't share with you. And if you compared those 3 sites, you'd probably have a completely different ranking. So all I'm saying here is take that information with a grain of salt. One of the best ways that you can get a sense for the quality of the public education in a given area is to talk with parents who live in those areas currently. So very often what we'll do with our clients is connect them with clients that we've worked in the past who have school-age children in the areas that they're considering to give their perspective on what the public education system has been like in their area. The last big priority to consider is lifestyle/amenities. What do you want life to look like on a day-to-day basis for you and your family? Are you looking for inner city living? Are you looking for classic suburban living? Or do you want no contact with civilization and to be in the most rural area possible? And as far as amenities go, what kind of stores do you expect to be within, say, a 15-minute driving distance? Do you need to be near a fantastic farmer's market, or will a Kroger suffice? And what kinds of social activities do you like to do? Is it important to you to be really close to a major body of water, or a mountain, or an airport, or the hottest new restaurant in town? Almost no location is going to provide all of these amenities at once, so it's really important to think about what's most important to you in your immediate area and let that be your guide for where to focus on. Now, I'm about to discuss how you can further narrow down this search, but one note on the categories I just mentioned, it's really important you actually create a priorities list. You might actually want to write this out and keep it with you. And you would think, oh, well, if I know it, I'm not gonna forget it. But it is actually very common for my clients to occasionally lose touch with what they told me originally was most important to them. when you're going through the home buying process, there's a lot of emotions, there's a lot of thoughts, there's a lot of considerations. And sometimes I've noticed clients can get hung up on one aspect that we've talked about and maybe lose sight of something that they told me is even more important than that. And when you're about to go under contract or go to the closing table and really make that final decision, the only way you're going to have real confidence and reduce anxiety and stress about this situation is if you're really in touch with your must-haves, your buy box. And if we can go through as a team and say, look, you told me number one was public schools, safety, and having at least a 4-bedroom house that's move-in ready with a fenced-in backyard for your pets. And we have all of those items checked off and then some. That is going to help you realize that you're making a good decision. Whereas if you realized some of those important boxes were not checked, you may want to change direction. Next, let's talk about how you even know which neighborhoods are going to deliver on your biggest priorities. Now, a lot of this is going to come from your realtor team, your boots on the ground, people who are living there and can relay to you what the experience of you living there would be like. But there's a few other key steps that you can do that we have found our clients have great success with. Number one is fairly straightforward and obvious, and it's an MLS search, a multiple listing search. This is where we take your minimum criteria with the budget and the areas that we think would work and create a search for you where you can see all the new listings that match those criteria. And by all means, you can definitely use Zillow or Realtor.com or any MLS app that you prefer to scroll through. But the really important piece here is going to be the filters. We want to be searching within the budget that you've determined is going to work. We want to be searching using the minimum size requirements that you need. And we want to take into account your other priorities, like if you have to commute somewhere, we're going to make our radius a certain distance around that destination. Or if it's the public schools, we're going to keep that search in areas that are going to meet the criteria you have for school quality. And what this is going to do, especially for people who have no familiarity with the Atlanta area, is help you start to see common neighborhood names where listings that you like are popping up. And the areas where you see listings that you like the most are probably the ones that you should focus on and visit, which leads into our next action, which would be a discovery tour. I've talked about this many times on my channel before, and while it's not 100% necessary, especially if you have strong familiarity with the Atlanta area, this is one of the best ways to make sure that you're focusing on the right areas and you don't have buyer's regret. So typically what we would advise with our clients is that once we've determined these priorities and criteria and we've set up the search, we should have a list of at least 2 to 6 neighborhoods that could work for everything that you're looking for. And these are the neighborhoods you're going to spend your time in during your discovery trip. Now, the discovery trip is simple as this. You're going to come into town for either a weekend or a 4-day weekend. You're definitely going to rent a car and you're going to drive around. You're going to cover as much ground as possible to really take in the neighborhoods and understand if it feels good and if it matches what you thought it would be like. Now, a lot of clients want to use this time to see a bunch of homes, and we can do that, but it's usually too early in the process to do that. If you spend all of your time indoors, you're not going to get a sense for what the neighborhood is like. So actually your time is best spent driving through some of the subdivisions where you've seen homes that you like, and then mapping out some of your favorite things to go do or enjoy, right? How far is the nearest Publix? How far is the nearest Target or TJ Maxx? How close is the gym that you prefer to work out at or the work that you're going to commute to? What are the traffic patterns like during rush hour and non-rush hour? How does the architecture of the homes look to you? Go grab lunch or dinner in some of these areas and spend as much time as you can trying to get a sense for the overall vibe of that community. Now, you're not going to get a perfect idea of what it's like to live in an area over one weekend or even 4 days. However, you will definitely know if you absolutely hate something and want to cross it off the list, and you should have a pretty good sense of if a neighborhood is going to fit the bill. Additionally, when you're back home in your home state and we are doing virtual tours for you and it's in a certain neighborhood, you're gonna have much more confidence and familiarity about that neighborhood and feel better about placing a potential offer. All right, before I let you go, I thought it would be beneficial to pull up a map and try to categorize some of the major areas that you might be focused on. Now, keep in mind, this is extreme generalization, but I figured pointing out some of the most common groupings in terms of areas could help you narrow things down quite quickly. So we have a map of Atlanta here, really looking at Metro Atlanta. Let's start off with the suburbs before we zoom in. So again, broad strokes, generalization. We're looking in the suburbs. So we're outside the perimeter of I-285. If you need to be in the suburbs and you have a strong budget and you need good quality public schools, there's a good chance you're going to be looking in the North Atlanta suburbs, which is this area from Marietta, up as high as Canton, over to Cumming, around to Buford, around to Duluth, and bordering Sandy Springs at the top. So that's usually one of the most desirable areas for families looking for a good suburb. Now, if we're looking to the west, this is probably the least developed direction from Atlanta. This is an area where if you want a more rural feel, or maybe you want new construction on a budget, you're gonna probably find good options to the west. Now, this is not typically an area where you always see high quality public schools. It's going to depend on exactly where we're talking about. It's an area where your budget may go a little further, certainly more so than the north side. Now, if we're looking to the south of the city, again, this is going to be a much more rural experience than the North Atlanta suburbs. And this is going to change immediately outside of the city. Unfortunately, public schools tend to not be so good. You may have slightly higher crime statistics. When you get down more into Fayetteville and Peachtree City, you have some higher quality public school options, a little bit more safe areas. So much like Atlanta, it is a mixed bag. It's going to come down to the exact neighborhood and exact location of the home that you're looking in. Again, your dollar is going to go a little bit further down here. You're going to be closer to the airport. This is often a good location for people who are working in the TV and film industry. You've got Trilith Studios down here, which in addition to being a film studio, is a great mixed-use development area. So you are having higher quality amenities developed in this area, but generally this is going to be someone looking for a little bit more of a quiet country suburban atmosphere. And then if we go east, this tends to be more of a busy area than the other two. A large portion of it is going to be Gwinnett, which is the fastest growing county in Metro Atlanta. So, looking at Lawrenceville and Snellville, these are going to be good suburbs. It's going to be congested. There's going to be lots and lots of strip centers and strip malls all over the place. Now, the further southeast you go, or just further out east towards Athens, obviously things are going to get more rural again. Your dollar is going to go further in these areas. And this ends up being a location for people who are not as concerned with their commute into the city of Atlanta. So you're looking in the suburbs, you're either looking north, south, east, or west. All of them could work. Each is just a little bit different flavor and is going to provide the things that you're looking for to a different extent. So let's zoom in and look at the perimeter. I don't know why I have Manny's Tavern and Popeyes pulled up here. I must have searched those before, but anyway, here's the perimeter of Atlanta, you see the actual city of Atlanta here. This is how we would designate if you're kind of in town or out of town in terms of lifestyle purposes. Now, in dividing up this area, you're gonna have the north part of town, just like the North Atlanta suburbs. ITP to the north is usually where the majority of the money and high income is gonna be, higher end amenities, richer neighborhoods. So, from Vinings going all the way up to Brookhaven through Chamblee, including North Druid Hills. I would include City of Decatur in that. I know it's on the east side, and then, maybe ending around Midtown. And listen, very different neighborhoods from one another, but if you want to be inside the perimeter, you have a much healthier budget, and you want one of the more established, ritzier areas with lots of high quality amenities, there's a good chance you're going to be looking in this area. The other distinction I would make is the inner city core neighborhoods. Okay, these are the popular neighborhoods for someone who really wants to be in the heart of the city. Areas like Grant Park or Inman Park or Reynoldstown. or Edgewood or Old Fourth Ward. These are neighborhoods often for maybe younger couples or younger families. These are going to be fairly pricier places to live because they're trendy with a lot of things to do. If you don't have good public school options, you probably have good charter and private school options. So, that is going to be for people who really want to be in the heart of the city, but want to be in those established neighborhoods and have the budget to back it up. Next up, you're going to have the west end of Atlanta. This is a gentrifying area that is mainly gentrifying in large part to the Atlanta Beltline, which I've explained in previous videos. This is an area that's common for younger people and couples with a budget, say under $450,000, that want to take advantage of an area that is up and coming, that's going to increase in value quite sharply over the next few years, and who are comfortable being in a transitional area. And I would just note, I would differentiate this area from the Upper West Side Provisions District, Blandtown, which is an area that I would include in North Atlanta. It's more established and typically safer. Another distinction I would make would be the Tri-Cities in South Atlanta, East Point, Hateville, and College Park. If you've been watching me for a while, you know I'm a huge fan of these areas. Listen, things change rapidly from street to street. A lot of people like to, really crap on like East Point and say it was a dangerous area at one point in its history. It's really changed tremendously. In 2024, there are big pockets of East Point, like Jefferson Park, that you'll see families out and about and kids walking just like you would in the suburbs, and there's decent school options. And obviously the benefit here being, if you travel frequently or work at the airport, you're right there. You're also inside the perimeter, so getting up to Midtown is an easy commute. So I would differentiate that area, and that really leaves large swaths of the west side of town. I'm not talking about West End anymore. And then southeast/east, which are often lower income areas, gentrifying to some degree or not at all in some cases. And let me be very clear, I think there are tons of subdivisions and little neighborhoods in both of these sections that could work great for a whole host of different people, especially if you want to own a home and you're on a lower budget, you work in the city, you want to be in the city. I think these areas should be in your radar. I think they're going to continue to grow in value along with the rest of Metro Atlanta. And I think if you can find a street with the homes are taken care of and the foot traffic isn't crazy, that you potentially would have no safety issues whatsoever during your entire time living there. So all of these areas that I pointed out, both in town and in the suburbs, could definitely work, but it's really just gonna come down to what's most important to you and your family. So that was a little bit of a tangent, but I thought it might be beneficial just to understand how you could break up portions of the city and suburbs into groupings and maybe have an idea for where you should start looking. Again, don't judge a book by its cover. Don't cross off a place because of one horror story that you were told. There are a lot of areas in all of Metro Atlanta that could probably fulfill your needs, and that's why it's so important to take the steps that I shared with you today. Make a list of priorities. Use your minimum budget and size requirements to start searching the MLS. And plan on a discovery trip in town to spend at least a little bit of time in these areas that could work for you and your needs. Now, at the end of the day, it's important you have either a realtor or other professional to talk with who lives here, who's from here, who really understands and listens to what you're looking for and can offer up some neighborhoods that would match those criteria. So I hope that provided you some value. I really appreciate you watching. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. It's a free way to support me. And again, I love when my viewers become clients. So book a Zoom call with me, call me on the phone, email me, whatever you want to do. But thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.